It all started really when I was diagnosed with perimenopause, and that was about just under 2 years ago now. I worked for the police force, very highly stressful job, and I was having quite debilitating symptoms, really bad anxiety, night terrors, and not being able to sort of cope with what I would normally cope with, brain fog, memory loss, blurry vision, just lots and lots of different things. I just felt like I couldn't cope anymore, and that, you know, I'd reached the limit of where I could process things normally, and I just thought, right, I can't do this. I need some help. I had to have about 4 months off work. Each month I was desperately trying to get myself well enough to go back to work, but the overriding factor was the lack of sleep. I was literally sleeping maybe an hour a night if I was lucky. If I had a good night, I'd got like 3 or 4 hours. I'm just going to go out and take this phone call. And I remember by the end of it, I came in and I put the phone down and I just sort of went, wow, okay. And I went back inside and he was like, you've been out there for ages. He goes, have you been talking that whole time? I said, yeah. And he went, she must have been good. And I was like, she was. Because to keep me engaged for that long, you know, and like we've discussed, you know, being in mental health, I did kind of think I had a really good grasp on everything. But talking about things that I already knew, but looking at it from a different perspective, or breaking things down a little bit more. I knew I had to kind of break stuff down, all the different traumatic things that were happening, and kind of put them in some sort of order of what was more important. But I think talking with you, my sleep's always been bad. I've always had bad sleep. So to me, it wasn't that important. I just wanted to get back to who I was. And I was trying to do that the quickest route possible. And that's not always the right route. The right route is to address what the problems are. I was literally going to bed so traumatized because of the night terrors and anxiety. Like, I would literally get to the top of my stairs and I would start shaking violently because my brain was telling me I was going to die. And coming from a police officer who deals with death all day long and horrific scenes, which don't faze me in the slightest, to fight and battle with your own brain is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I had depression many years ago, about 15, 16 years ago. That was through like a relationship breakup. So there was kind of a catalyst for that. And I wasn't on citalopram for very long. But I kind of thought, this isn't the same. This is not depression. This is something that I can't fight. And the more tired I got, the more scared I got to go to bed, the worse my sleep was. I think for me, after that first session, I was like, in my mind, I was like very much, okay, I quite like talking to this person. And I know how important it is to communicate and to have somebody that you trust to listen to what your problems are, not just nod and agree, but actually somebody who's then going to reflect that back and say, right, I hear what you're saying. And not try and dismiss me. Talking to you after the first session, I suddenly realised that I wasn't on my own and that I could rely on someone. And I think because we'd booked the next session in straight away, I was like, I wanted to show you by the next session how well I'd done. And it was almost like, I suppose, a bit of a mother-child thing, where I was like, I wanted to show you how good I could feel by each session, like, and I knew it wasn't all going to be positive, but I wanted to show you that I'd understood what you told me and that I put it into practice, and that I hadn't just poo-pooed what you'd said, that I genuinely wanted to kind of work with you, and I knew that that was going to help me. So I think that was where each session, at the end of each session, I would genuinely go away and be inspired, I think is the word, and that is genuine. I was very inspired by you to go away and keep fighting, because at the first session I was at the point where I wanted to give up, and I had filled out one of the surveys, and I came back as the highest scoring for suicidal thoughts, because I didn't know where else to turn, or where else I could get the help from. Each session that we had, you inspired me. You made me feel heard. You then inspired me to go away and do better and be better and try what we discussed and put that into practice, so that by the next time we spoke, you know, and I think with the running and things, I was like, you were so supportive, and you were like, oh, that's brilliant, you've done really well. And even though my partner was telling me that, I was like, oh, thanks, babe. And when you said it, I was like, Laura thinks I've done well, you know. And it was brilliant. It was just like having a best friend. And I think that's what I needed at that point. So
that's lovely. Thank you.
We had our last session and I was doing so much better, and I knew I didn't need you anymore, but that didn't stop me wanting to speak to you, you know. And that need and want is completely different, isn't it? And it's lovely to go from a need to a want, because that means you're better, in my mind. I think we had us talking to you. I miss our chats. I am doing so much better. I would say probably about 80% back to where I was previously, which is huge, because I was at the lowest of my low that I think I could probably go. Yeah, I just think having to work my way out of that was really tough. And yeah, I think it was all down to you helping me. So thank you.